Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start, although we'll probably get a few people drifting in. And first, I want to call Barbara Hooper to give us the invocation.
Good morning. Will you please bow your heads as I pray? Dear wise and loving Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. Amen.
Thank you, Barbara. And now I'm going to call for the pledge, Ed Cowan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed. I want to give my president remarks before Andrew speaks, just because it seems appropriate. Mark Waters is absent today. He had kind of a work assignment. He's still employed as a priest, and so he had a work assignment this morning. Jim Jandro will be delayed. He may get here by the end of the meeting, so Ed Cowan has graciously offered, I'm not sure you offered, he's helping us out. I want to thank the current council members, council committee chairs, chairs of unit leader and floor leader, and of course the leaders themselves for all the work they do. And I can't forget to mention numerous resident leadership and management. Thank you for being so supportive. Everyone involved has a goal of helping us live our best lives. I'm going to move the agenda around a little bit, and I'm going to have Employee Appreciation Fund at the end. So next up is Angie for employee recognition.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So this month for November, we have a wonderful tie for November's Employee of the Month. 2 employees were chosen. So at this time, it would be my pleasure to recognize Kavaris Harkless and Andy Perez, if you both can come up. Kavaris is a staff development coordinator. He's being recognized of how much he works. He is a very hard worker and has been working to support skilled nursing, especially in staffing. We appreciate how you show initiative with getting things done in support of skilled nursing. Your hard work doesn't go without notice, and congratulations to your outstanding work.
I just want to say thank you. It truly is an honor, and I'm looking forward to be here many more years.
Yeah.
Next up is Andy Perez. So Andy has a dual role, as everyone knows. Andy is our IT tech support, and he is also a security guard. He has supported me through many circumstances here since I've been here. Andy, thank you for being such a dependable and loyal employee. We appreciate your hard work day in and day out. Your dedication to service excellence for both residents and employees is commendable. Your politeness and can-do attitude are reflected in everything you do. Furthermore, your patience, professionalism, and helpfulness represent Cypress Village's values at its core. So we appreciate you. Both of you, thank you for your many skills to make Cypress Cypress Village a wonderful place to work. We are looking forward to your future successes as well, so appreciate both of you equally. Here you go, Ian.
Thank you.
Now I would like to announce the Rookie of the Month, Miss Caitlin Buckley, if you can come to the podium. Caitlin was hired in September of this year, and she's already made an impact. She is currently she's an activities assistant and has made a great impression on both residents and employees alike. She is a ray of sunshine, does her job with willingness, enthusiasm, and a smile all the time. Congratulations, Katie, as we look forward to you doing great things at the community. We appreciate it.
Sorry, I'm really nervous. I've never ever got employee of the month ever. I just wanted to say that I really genuinely enjoy my job. I love making people happy, and I feel like I get to make people happy every single day that I work. And I come to work happy, and I always go home happy.
That's it for me.
He's gonna go over the treasurer's report.
Okay.
Does it come as anyone's surprise that most of the money came from Coffee Chat? We had no big donors this month. But that doesn't mean you can't break the streak. So, the balance as of the end of October was $1,424.88. Thank you.
All right, Wendy.
Thank you, everybody. And now I'm getting ready to bore you, and I'll try to go fast. So raise your hand if you want me to slow down. So according to Florida statutes 651.081, the resident council is required to get a vote by their members when they make any changes to the bylaws, and that's why I'm standing before you today. We have updated they're mostly cleanup changes to the bylaws, and there's copies of the summary of the changes up here if you don't have one, and there's also about 25 copies of the bylaws if you want to have something to lull you to sleep tonight. So in Article 4, Section 2, qualifications, we just simply added electronic communication because this is 2022 and we do sometimes do things electronically. Article 4, Section 3, duties, we added attend regular monthly meetings of the council. So that was a small change. In E, make decisions in good faith with the best interest and options for all residents. That was something the council felt was important to add. Term of office, we simply added term to make it a little more understandable for someone reading it that didn't really know anything about the council. Section 5, nomination of candidates for expired terms, we added community to annual meetings. So this is the community annual meeting. Are you dying of boredom yet? For elections, we added community and electronic, as in electronic ballots, which many of you did this in the last few weeks. We also added memory, as in memory care. Section 9, regular and additional meetings, we added if deemed appropriate by the council. So we would call extra meetings if deemed appropriate by the council. Section 10, quorum of meetings, we added 4 regular meetings as in a quorum for regular meetings. As I said, this is mostly cleanup and to make it a little more understandable. For the Section 12, conduct of meetings, added regular. It says regular meetings of the council. Our regular meetings are monthly. So they're not special, they're planned. Section 14, midterm vacancies. This was an important change. And what we added is if the vacancy occurs 30 days prior to election balloting closing, the vacancy will be added to the balloting for the upcoming elections. And what that means is, suppose, oh my God, Wendy decided to resign this morning. Since there's 5 people running for 3 positions, then that 4th one would come into play. Article 7, amendment of bylaw section 1. We added a majority of, as in majority of the council for a vote. Assuming it's a quorum, of course. Article 9, and I'm on Article 8, and I'm almost done. Meeting of residents, we added annual. This is the annual meeting of residents where we conduct business. Article 8, Section 1, we added official annual and November and annual, again, to clarify that this is the annual. So, to clarify that this is the annual meeting where we conduct business. Any questions, discussion? See, I knew I would just bore you to death and you just didn't read anything. I will entertain a motion to approve the bylaws revisions for 2022. And a second?
Second.
And can I have a vote by raising your hand? Okay, I think it's in, thank you. Committee updates, that was one committee update, the bylaws revision, and next up is the Veterans Committee, which Ed Cowan will be doing. He's going to give us a little update on the activities for the 11th.
I'll be updating on 3 events this week that the Veterans Committee and Cypress Village will be hosting. The first of those will be this Thursday, will be the Marine Corps birthday here in Egret Hall at 2 p.m. Everyone is invited. The second one will be at 11/11/11, which is Veterans Day. The armistice was signed then, and we will be updating the wall, the Veterans Wall in the sea lobby, you all know was the railroad lobby, and that event will be a celebration of the changes that have been made in the last 6 months. Now, there'll also be some refreshments to encourage people to come. Everyone is invited. And the last one, and the biggest one, is the Veterans Day dinner, which will take place this Friday. That will start at 4:30 with cocktails. It's going to be really large this year. Both the Loon's Nest and Egret Hall will be used, all set up. The Loon's Nest, unfortunately, will be closed that day, but there will be over about 150 veterans. It will honor those veterans and widows of here at Cypress Village. And that about covers my quick and 3 important events this week.
Good job, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. It's nice to have people fill in when others can't be here. Next up is our Sarah Ninja with the budget.
So I'm going to use this today as I go through my presentation. A resident gave this to me once, and I've never had the opportunity to use it, so today's the day. It's a special day. So we're going to talk about the annual monthly service fee increase today. And I want to start off by saying that this is the highest rate increase that we have done, but this is also the highest inflation that we have experienced. They go hand in hand. So many residents have made it a point to tell me that they're not happy about this, so I want to make it a point to say we are not either. We're not happy about this. So the numbers we're going to talk about today do make sense when you look at the inflation. We've already published the increase amounts. I'm sure everyone's familiar with them at this point. But I want to start by talking about the Jacksonville housing market. These are from different news outlets. They use different data, a little bit different time periods, but very similar. The first one is about demonstrators because their rent is going up. In Jacksonville, that's anywhere from 15 to 12%. Now that's rent. That's not utilities, that's not food, that's not anything else, that's rent. The next one talks about, again, rising utility costs, rent, etc. Those are also 11.9, 12.3. Jacksonville Today talks about how from the pandemic to current, rent in the Jacksonville metro area is up 30%. Again, we're talking rent only. And then in overall Jacksonville, 22%. So something that all of those publications have in common, they quote you different numbers. They're all in the double digits on rent alone. So I wanted to make that point because it's a legitimate point to be made. The last quote here I wanted to read off because I think it reflects some of the concerns that I have received from residents. This was recently published in News for Jacks. Bill Hoover lives on a fixed income and can barely afford his new grocery bill. I only get to shop once a month, and because I'm on Social Security, after it's gone up about $65 a month, basically he only has $25 left after he buys everything. So inflation is everywhere and it's impacting everyone. That's not Cypress Village specific. Cypress Village is not exempt from inflation, unfortunately. While we have tried desperately to protect our residents over the years from inflation, and in many ways I think that we have better than other places, this is CPI, and this is the monthly service fee increase over time. And then that's Social Security's COLA, the cost of living adjustment. Supposed to be pointing. And this is Cypress Village's. So they're following a similar trend. This is an example that I thought would be quite relevant to give at this time. So we talk about the monthly service fee increase. This is specific to the residents under an entry fee contract. 11.4% seems really high. But that 11.4% is not just rent. It includes other things. So let's use a very realistic example of someone who's just living in Jacksonville in an apartment, not here, living their life paying rent. So this is about a year snapshot. Rent, a very normal rent amount is $1,500. I assumed that they were spending $75 a week in groceries before inflation, which is very minimal. Utilities about $200 a month, water, electric. Again, that could be higher. And then gas, $25 a week, bare minimum. I assumed all bare minimum numbers. If I use irrefutable inflation factors on each category, that person's going up at a minimum of 15%. So I thought that this was worth laying out to illustrate how our monthly service fee not only takes all of these factors into consideration in different ways, but others. So I think we've touched inflation enough at this point. Let's talk about some specifics to Cypress Village, which would be labor and wages. the vast majority of this is driven by labor and wages. And that's pretty much everywhere you go at this point. But I'm also going to touch on a couple of revenue-related categories in the healthcare center. So top line implications. Let's start at the top with revenue. We really don't have too many revenue challenges. We've stabilized a lot of the occupancy lines here over time. However, back in the day when we were trying to minimize the monthly service fee increase as much as possible, what we would say is, well, instead of budgeting 50 sales, we'll make it 55. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. We don't have that many apartments to sell anymore. Am I penalizing you? Are we penalizing you because we're full? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we can't try to go above and beyond a sustainable amount of sales anymore because we can't. So previously, we would have about 60 sales a year when we were going above and beyond. 50 is an attainable, realistic number at this point. But that's not the vast majority of it. Most of it has to do with the healthcare center. So there are 3 different payer sources that come into play with our healthcare center: Medicaid, HMOs, and Medicare. They all have different impacts. That world is changing quite drastically. So with Medicaid, this is for people who are living there long term. They've depleted their funds and the state is paying us. For an individual under Medicaid, we don't even get paid enough to break even. So we're essentially subsidizing whoever is in our healthcare center under Medicaid. This has been a focus for the whole state. So what legislators finally decided very quickly was, okay, we will allow a slight inflation bump. We're gonna give you a little bit more money per day for Medicaid patients, but all the healthcare centers have to go to a minimum wage of 15 now in October. That happened. So we had to adjust to that. So what ended up happening was we got a couple dollars more a day, and then we had to pay everyone a lot more who was below that $15 minimum wage. Cypress Village couldn't control that. That's something that happened across the state. Then we get into HMO and Medicare. So a lot of the business we do in the healthcare center is short-term rehab. So people who are there for a short-term stay. HMO plans are becoming more and more predominant. We call penetration rates are rising, so the percentage of people who have not traditional Medicare, but a Medicare replacement plan, that number is rising. We get paid, in many cases, hundreds of dollars less a day for those people and have to provide the same care. So that really does impact our numbers. Whereas back in the day, if you look back years ago, Medicare, everybody was traditional Medicare. And we got paid the same, it was easy to project, it was stable. It was stable reimbursement. This is somewhat unstable. So that's happening everywhere as well. But we're gonna continue to experience that. That's not going away. So occupancy. What we budgeted here is very stable occupancy for the year. And this is average, so it fluctuates by month throughout the year. But where you see the biggest deficit is here in skilled nursing. So we ended up, because of the factors I just discussed, taking 20 beds out of the capacity. Will that impact our residents' ability to be in healthcare? Absolutely not. We will always have beds for our residents. But that is going to impact us being able to take Medicaid patients. We can't afford it anymore. It doesn't make financial sense for you all or for us to do that anymore. And many places are doing that. Now, if our own residents need those Medicaid beds, absolutely we'll take them, no question. But we are not going to be taking as much from the outside anymore. It's not financially sustainable. So the labor market. This is really where all the dollars are coming from and where there's not much we can do to minimize some of what's happening here with the rate increase. So minimum wage alone is going up between 9 and 10%, depends on which time of the year you look at it because it changes in October. But let's just say 9 to 10%. That is significant, minimum wage. So how many people think that we can pay people here minimum wage and remain competitive? None. So if we can't pay this number, and that's 9 to 10%, then even a minimum wage we pay is gonna have to be higher than that. Historically, minimum wage used to go up maybe 10 cents, if we're lucky 50 cents a year. It's going up $1 a year in Florida. That's a lot. That's a lot. Because that doesn't just mean we have to pay $1 more, that means it puts pressure on the wages that we pay. And we have to pay even more than that. Then we get to the healthcare $15 minimum wage. $15 doesn't sound like a lot to pay, but when years ago we were budgeting 11 and 12 and we were competitive at that point, it's a huge jump. So with that Medicaid funding requirement, that came fast and furious. It was something that happened over a couple months, and we had to react very quickly. It was specific to healthcare, but we have positions that overlap with healthcare. That $15 minimum wage adjustment impacted over 100 positions here. That's a lot. It's a lot of money. And we didn't have a choice, we had to. It was a legislative initiative or priority. And that put pressure on other wages. Did that allow us to prioritize certain positions the way we otherwise would have? No, we had to be very strategic how we handled it. But we did, we handled it. But it impacted over 100 positions. And there's a compounding effect to that. Then we get to the staffing agencies. So through the pandemic, everywhere, not just Cypress Village, was plagued with staffing agencies. And for those of you who have come to some of our quarterly financial reviews, I've touched on this. Everywhere, specifically healthcare centers and the hospitals still, were infiltrated by staffing agencies. And it's very hard to come back from that because these people are being paid a fortune by the agencies, and the agencies, they charge us a fortune, and it's just a vicious cycle. But what happens is it causes permanent inflationary impacts on wages. Wages will never go back to pre-pandemic levels, not just because of the minimum wage, but also because what happened in healthcare centers, specifically with the staffing agencies. I'll give you an example. Our CNAs, before the pandemic, it was not uncommon for us to pay $12 or $13. That was a competitive wage at the time. We pay $17 now. And that's competitive. And that's just one very small example. When you get to nurses, it's even more staggering. But that's what we have to do. And if we keep these agencies here, it's even more expensive. It's not good care because they're not dedicated, they're not loyal to us. We need people who are. So we've had to make some very serious adjustments there. Okay, so the dollars. The final budget isn't released yet because we still have insurance and taxes, but these numbers are final. So I made it a point to publish them because they're big numbers. So by department, general and administrative, no, that's not me patting my pockets, I've got that one too, not me. We did wage adjustments for many positions, including the receptionists, who are in that number. The plant line includes maintenance and housekeeping. We did wage adjustments in those areas. Environmental services is housekeeping. That has security guards as well. So far we have receptionists, security guards, maintenance, environmental services, which is housekeepers, public area attendants, and the laundry. All of those positions received wage adjustments, all of them. And then food and beverage. There are various positions within this department who have received wage adjustments through the year as well. The servers did receive one, and then the back of the house staff, so that would be cooks, dietary aides, etc., they received them as well. And then of course the healthcare centers received very significant ones over time. Those are big numbers. If I take the amount of dollars from the independent living monthly service fee increases alone, it would basically break even with this or come very close. And that's before you get into expenses. So it's pretty significant what we've had to do with wages. Okay, so there are a couple areas from a non-wage expense perspective that I wanted to touch on as well. So we kept it very tight as possible with regular categories like environmental services, resident services, maintenance supplies. We were able to increase a lot in some areas and decrease others and try to balance it to the best of our ability because we had to fund wages. But there is no getting around utilities. Utilities are up a lot. So irrefutably 30%. And our occupancy is going up by an average of 6 units over the year. So most of that utility number is not the occupied units. It is literally the utility costs. That's the JEA bill, that's waste management. All of those areas are sensitive to labor. So that's something we don't have a lot of authority to change as well. And the food and beverage area, of course, is going up more than others would customarily at 7%. So I wanted to get into some frequently asked questions or frequently made comments and try to address as many of them as I could. So one of them, I quoted something that reflected it. So I'm on a fixed income. How am I supposed to pay for this? Well, Social Security and some pension plans are rising. Maybe not at the rate that we've increased because it doesn't encompass the same factors, but some of them are rising. So some of that is going to be offset. And then some may have to increase distributions from retirement accounts. Some of our employees are experiencing what I showed you on that slide. We have to balance the scale. We have to be able to pay people enough to remain working here. And they are also experiencing inflation, mostly at higher rates. And we can't increase their pay at the rate of inflation either. So this is a very tough thing to balance between residents and employees and trying to keep the community stable financially. But it may be a good time to address things with your financial advisors. Many people are doing that, and I would recommend it. Because in high inflation environments like this, it's necessary. My services were disrupted during the pandemic. How dare you increase me? Get that a lot. And I understand the remark. For this budget's for 2023. We have to pay our people these wages in 2023. So that's the biggest part of this is we can't cut their wages to make up for the service disruptions, but I would encourage everyone to understand that everywhere had service disruptions during the pandemic. Trash, recycling, things we pay taxes for were disrupted. We didn't get a tax break on that. These things did happen during the pandemic everywhere. So why are the equity homeowners and the entrance fee residents receiving different amounts? There are many factors included in that answer, but two very big ones I would include are utilities and healthcare. What if inflation goes down? My increase isn't going to go down. I get that question. The wage rates we pay cannot go down. So that's the general answer to that. And while inflation may stabilize over time, the wages are not going to go down. And we know for a fact that a minimum wage is passed by law to go up $1 a year, and we're always going to have to pay more than that. So what is Cypress Village doing about this? What are you all doing as leadership here at the community? So a couple of things I wanted to touch on there. We have been very involved in getting a voice and a seat at any table we possibly can. We recently hosted the president of Leading Age Florida. They spearhead a lot of our advocacy efforts when it comes to lawmaking, getting reimbursed from insurance companies, as that's clearly a big challenge here, things like that. We've been in front of as many lawmakers as we could get in front of in the past year. We personally, Ty, myself, and Stephanie, our health administrator, went to Tallahassee and met face-to-face with Senator Bean. And we talked about staffing agencies and the inflationary impacts that it's causing to our residents. And there's been many other relationships we've been working on building and strengthening over time. We're also exploring different types of ways to save, like utility rebate vendors and things like that. So we continue to explore every avenue we can find there. But in conclusion, I do want to say inflation is scary. It is scary, and we're not happy about it either. This is a very tough position for everyone in the room, I assure you. We need to remain focused on making the most sustainable choices for the entire community. And unfortunately, the world pre-pandemic really doesn't exist anymore. We're in a different world, so we all need to work together to adjust and make the best of where we're at. Thank you.
Is Linda Daughtry in the room? Oh, okay. Linda's going to talk to us about the Employee Appreciation Fund and also give us the results of the Resident Advisory Council election.
Okay, this is a little more difficult this year because the request for donations to the Employee Christmas Fund officially came out the same day as the rate increase. Yeah. So that makes it more difficult. But Sarah, you did an excellent job. But we still need, as Sarah said, to think about our employees because they are experiencing the same thing we are experiencing. And because for the most part, they are at a lower level of compensation, their percentage increases are a whole lot bigger than our percentage increases, just because that's the way the math works. So I know people are, tightening their belts and doing all that kind of stuff, but please keep in mind all these employees who every single day do the best they can to make our life here the best it can be. And think about the people you see every day, but also think about the people that you don't see every day. There are a lot of people behind the scenes who do wonderful, supportive things for us. And we have run the numbers for the base calculation for the employees that were part of the census as of first payday in November. That will change a little bit based on what happens between now and the first payday in December. But the trajectory will be the same. And we still need funds equivalent to what we had last year in order to make a meaningful gift to these employees who do their best to take care of us. And we're back to the point where there are just as many as there were last year. We had a dip there. But we really need your help, your support, your donations. Now that the RAC election is finished, I have my easel, and now I can put the Christmas tree in the lobby so that y'all can watch the progress as we go through. Donations for this year's gift, and it is a gift, but also remember that this is the only way monetarily that any of us, because of Cypress Village rules against individual gifts or tipping or any other way to give people money, that this is the only way we can make a gift to these employees as residents of this facility. So keep that in mind, do the best you can, and we will spend it wisely. Okay. All right, the Residents Advisory Council election. Just a couple of comments. We had very good participation this year relative to other years. It's still not as good as we should have. There are probably, 700 residents, individual people, something like that. 700 individual residents approximately. This year we had almost 250 individual ballots cast. That is, since I've been involved in this process in different capacities over the last 6 years, we have never achieved that level, number-wise, of participation. The electronic voting was almost 200 people this year. That is a great way for things to happen, because that's the easiest way to keep up with the calculations, because the computer does a lot of it. So participation was very good. We had a wonderful slate of qualified candidates. I'm sure many people had difficulty making their choices. But the choices were made, all the calculations have been done, and the newly elected council members are. And this is always, I do this in alphabetical order, and there is no communication about numbers, and never will be. Bill Chatfield, Jim John Rowe, and Ms. Carol Luckenbach. Thank you all for your participation and your interest in the election. And these people now need to get to work.
Thank you, Linda. That concludes the meeting. Yes.
Take a picture.
Okay. So the meeting is adjourned. If the council members would stay, including Carol and Bill, I hope they're here. I haven't seen them.
Yes, they're here.
Yes, they're here. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.